We are told that anaconda are the largest snakes living on Earth, and some tribe people even worship them. Anacondas are very ferocious and grow in large size, and their length can reach up to 40 feet. Next, we see a poacher is trying to call for help, but is attacked by a creature and he runs. He climbs his ship, and before the creature can catch him, he commits suicide by shooting himself. Next, in Brazil we see filmmaker Terry who meets Professor Kale who discuss about shooting a documentary movie. This film will be on Shirishama's tribe who live near Amazon River and are believed to be not seen recently. Kale shows her the map where the tribe could be and is confident Terry is the best director for this. Next, Terry meets the film crew, Danny who is the cameraman and Mateo is the ship captain. We come to know Kale and Terry were a couple before, and Terry asks him about Warren. Suddenly Warren arrives with his suitcases, and he is the narrator in the movie. Warren meets production manager Denise and her boyfriend Gary, who is the sound engineer. They all board the ship and leave from there to search the tribe and make their movie. Terry begins filming her movie, and sometime later they find a man stranded on a boat. His name is Paul, and his boat is destroyed, and they help him come on their ship. Paul says they can drop him in next village, where he can find help to repair his boat. Paul thanks them, and next morning, he catches a fish for everyone to eat and tells about himself. Paul says he is a snake catches and works for zoo and collectors who give him money to catch rare snakes. Paul comes to know they are looking for Shirishama's tribe and tells he can show where they live. He says he has met them and this is the least he can do for saving his life. Later at night, Kale shows Terry some fireflies and they have a kiss thinking about their past. Nearby, an anaconda finds a panther and attacks it and kills it and eats it. Next morning, Paul tells Terry they are close by and Kale sees a snake statue in the river. Paul says the tribe people worship anaconda snakes and live near waterfalls where the snake guards them and asks to take a different route. Kale says he knows more about tribes and does not believe Paul's story and continues on original way. Paul gets angry and asks to be dropped at next village, and at night the boat is parked near a jungle. Gary and Denise decide to go to jungle to record some sounds for movie and start kissing each other. Suddenly they are attacked by an animal and they run towards the ship and Paul shoots the animal. Everyone goes to see what has happened and they see Paul has killed a wild boar who is going to attack Gary and Denise. Carl lets everyone to stay on the boat for night and Paul says they now have food for a week. Next morning their ship leaves but is suddenly stopped because its propeller is stuck with rope. Kale decides to go in river and dives down and manages to free the rope, but is attacked by something. The others go to save him and pull him out and see he is not breathing and check his mouth. They see a wasp is stuck in his mouth and Paul uses a knife to cut his throat to make him breathe. Kale's throat is swollen and he is unconscious and others make him sleep in the cabin. Terry says they should leave and Paul suggests to go back and take route he suggested. Paul shows his route will save them 50 miles and they need to take Kale to hospital to save his life. Others don't trust Paul but have no other choice and follow his plan and go on a different route. Next day they find the river is blocked to go ahead and Paul suggests he can clear the way. Paul says he will use dynamite and Terry is not happy since it can cause environmental damage. Paul says turning back will make them lose 2 days and they all agree to blow the blockage. Paul and Gary go to plant the dynamite and Paul saves Gary's life from a creature in the water. They blow the wall but lose most of their fuel drums and the explosion causes baby snakes to fall on the ship. Everyone gets scared and Paul saves Warren from a snake bite and they have only 1 fuel drum left. Terry tells Danny that she does not trust Paul and he is acting very strange. Later, Paul finds an abandoned boat and tells everyone to check it out for more fuel. Paul, Mateo, and Danny go to the boat and we have Foto in paper where we come to know Paul, Mateo, and the poacher work together and hunt snakes. Paul takes the paper and we see the same boat we saw at the beginning and Paul finds his box of weapons. Paul tells Danny the box has treasure and they carry the box to their boat and Mateo falls in the water. Anaconda attacks Mateo and catches him and breaks his body and eats him. When Mateo does not return to the boat, others get worried and Danny goes to look for him. Danny is unable to find him and returns with Mateo's torch and Paul shows everyone Anaconda's skin. He says something this big might have eaten Mateo when he is in water, and they must leave now. Paul says anacondas are worth a lot of money and Terry decides to wait till night in case Mateo returns. Later, Denise is worried about Mateo and Gary tells her to go to her room and goes to talk with Paul. Gary asks how money they can get for Anaconda and Paul says catching a live one will get them $1 million. Next day, Paul shoots a monkey to act as a bait to capture Anaconda and says they should leave. Gary agrees with him and says since Cale is injured, they should make a movie about Paul catching the snake. He says by helping Paul they can also make a lot of money and says Paul only knows the way out. Danny does not agree, so Paul fires his gun to scare all and takes over the boat with Gary as captain. At night, Paul uses the monkey to attract Anaconda, and soon it gets caught in the trap. Everyone is scared to see Anaconda for the first time, and Gary uses the lights to blind the snake. Danny tries to attack Paul, but Anaconda shakes the boat, and his knife falls in water, and Anaconda escapes. Anaconda throws the dead monkey on Warren, and gets on boat to attack them, and Paul uses a tranquilizer on it. Anaconda shakes its tail in pain and Denise falls in water and Gary goes to save her. Gary manages to save her but is caught by Anaconda who captures him and kills him. Terry tries to shoot it but Paul stops her saying he needs Anaconda alive for more money. Anaconda escapes from there and everyone is sad and Denise shouts on Paul for bringing them here. Paul tells everyone to follow his order and threatens them with his gun. Later, Terry applies some makeup and goes alone to meet Paul in his cabin and says she needs his help. She says she wanted to make the documentary, but now can make a movie about Paul catching the snake. She says she needs Paul's protection and Paul agrees and kisses her and sees Danny is about to attack him from behind. He avoids Danny's attack and knew Terry was fooling him but suddenly Warren attacks him from behind. Paul gets unconscious and Warren says they should throw him in water, but they decide to tie him up. Next day, Terry shows him the paper they found on the boat and come to know Paul was lying. They come to know Paul and Mateo were partners, and we see Cale is still recovering. Warren teaches Danny how to drive the boat and they arrive at a waterfall. The boat gets stuck in shallow waters and is surrounded by stones, and they decide to free it. Danny suggests they pull the boat with help of nearby trees and go in water with ropes. Danny, Terry, and Warren go to free the boat and Denise decides to kill Paul to take her revenge. When she goes near Paul with a knife, Paul attacks her with his legs and chokes her. He pushes her body in water and others don't see this and takes her knife to cut his ropes. Danny sees Anaconda coming towards them and warns others and they run towards the boat. Danny and Terry manage to reach the boat safely and Anaconda goes after Warren. They tell Warren to climb the waterfall and Paul manages to free himself and attacks them. Paul injures Danny with a knife and hits Terry and Warren has climbed the waterfall. Anaconda finds Warren and he jumps to save himself, but the snake catches him midair. Anaconda kills Warren, and a tree falls on the boat which frees it from the stones and all fall in water. Cale wakes up because of the noise and Terry swims back on the boat and calls Danny to come. When Danny swims to the boat they see Denise's body float up and get scared and Anaconda catches Danny. Terry uses a gun to shoot Anaconda in the head and kills it and frees Danny. Paul climbs on the boat and attacks Terry for killing the snake, but is suddenly attacked from behind. Cale uses a tranquilizer dart on Paul and he becomes unconscious, and they throw him in water. They make Cale rest in his room and leave from there and arrive at an abandoned house. They decide to stop there to call for fuel and go inside and find some fuel barrels. Terry also finds snake skin, but they are suddenly attacked by Paul who captures them. Paul puts animal blood on them and says there is another anaconda here, and he will use them as bait. Danny and Terry are surrounded by a net, and suddenly they see a 40-foot anaconda come there. The snake captures them, and Paul activates the trap and captures all of them in a net. The snake is very powerful for Paul and manages to free itself, and Paul tries to shoot it. Anaconda goes after Paul, and he tries to run and climb stairs, but the snake catches him. Anaconda attacks Paul and surrounds him and breaks his bones and swallows it completely. Terry and Danny run from there, and Anaconda goes after Terry, and she finds the snake's nest. Anaconda throws Paul out of its mouth, and Terry gets scared and runs from there. Danny tells Terry to climb the chimney and uses an axe to attack and injure the snake. Anaconda pushes fuel barrels on the ground, and Terry climbs the ladder to top. Danny spills more fuel on the ground and lights it up, and Anaconda goes towards the ladder. Terry manages to open the gate at top and escape from there, and Anaconda gets caught in the blast. Terry jumps in the water, and the chimney explodes, and Anaconda is on fire and falls in water. Anaconda goes in water but suddenly attacks Terry, and Danny uses an axe to hit it in head and kill it. They come back on the boat and find Kale has woken up and is better, and outside they see Shirshama tribe. They decide to film them and complete their documentary and leave from there.